Tesla made a really interesting announcement towards the end of last week. They debuted the longly awaited Cybertruck, which is Elon Musk's vision of a truck that kind of falls in line with Blade Runner, the very futuristic look. Very, very different than any other vehicle that is really out there. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, about its applications in space exploration, and then some of the more design choices and why it is the way it is, and a few other topics like that, who it is that actually will buy it. But let's first of all introduce it. So the Cybertruck is a stainless steel exterior body truck. Now I say truck in quotations because it looks so different than any other truck that's out there. It has some pretty amazing specs. It can do some really neat things. It has an air compressor built in. You can plug in tools directly into the vehicle that use electricity and will work just fine. It's really a pretty remarkable vehicle. And it's actually quite inexpensive. The starting version of it that can drive about as far as the starting range Model 3 will cost about the same amount, about $39,000 roughly. So it's pretty amazing what it can do. But it's unconventional to say the least. You see, the body of it has a lot of these very folded over parts. It has straight lines. It doesn't have the curves, the elegance that most Tesla vehicles have. But that's because they designed for utility over performance. There are a couple of things that were very much driving things. One is they wanted to have something that is inexpensive. Two, they wanted to use stainless steel of a similar type to what is used in Starship because Elon Musk has absolutely fallen in love with steel and he wants to do that. Three, they really wanted to push the boundaries to do something different than what has been done, and they really took a clean slate towards the approach. They wanted to make sure they had the pickup body bed that a lot of vehicles have, so you could store stuff in the back and you could take a decent number of people. But other than that, they were really pretty open with what they could do. They didn't take a lot of those traditional design decisions. They weren't really going after the traditional pickup truck driver that you see all over the place here. And so they came up with something that's very, very different. It has a lot of these straight creases instead of the curves. Why does it have those? Well, they made this out of steel and they made it thick enough to be very, very resistant to really anything. See, most cars have the structure of the vehicle in some key pillars. My Model 3 has the structural beams that are along the side. The side plates, they work for aerodynamics and looks primarily, but they're not really that important. They're a very, very thin coating. They're just really not important to the overall structure of the vehicle. They're very lightweight for the most part. But the Cybertruck, its skin is actually very important to the structure. It is the structure. Because it's made of steel, it can do that. Because it's much, much thicker. But because it's so thick, they can't just manufacture it like they traditionally would. They took a sledgehammer to it in the demo, and there's rumors that they were going to do stuff like use a chainsaw and a blowtorch and just show that they really couldn't do that. They kind of shortened the presentation a little bit after they threw a steel ball and it broke the glass. By the way, the reason why that happened is been determined. The sledgehammer hitting the base of the truck caused some little microfractures to appear in the glass, and as a result, when they threw the steel ball into the glass, it went through because the glass had been weakened already. If they had switched the order of those, then it would have been a very, very different presentation. The vehicle on paper is absolutely fantastic. It actually can do more than any other truck that's out there. It's faster. It has a higher towing capacity for the price than anything else. It can seat as many or more people. It's really pretty incredible. And the fact that it's electric is even better. But the look of it is a little bit off-putting. It doesn't look like a pickup truck at all. It looks like an armored personnel carrier or something along those lines. It's very, very different. It's pretty evident that durability was something they considered. think that Elon was probably designing this with an eye towards using it on Mars as much, if not more, than on Earth. In fact, he even said that the vehicle is intended to be used on Mars. Although there will be some pressurized variant of that, I'm a little curious to see what that is intended for. It'd be relatively easy to pressurize the inside of it once you've got the spacesuits in there, and the vehicle has a lot of room. It seems evident that they could probably put astronauts in there. The ground clearance is the highest of any Tesla vehicle, and they can also control the suspension independently, so there's a pretty good chance that it will work pretty decently on Mars, although they still have the axle problem, the tire problem, which may or may not be an issue. I think the bigger issue with the tire pressure is the fact that it changes so much from day to night. And even here in the winter, I'm having to fill up my tires and be a little more careful than I am versus the summer temperature. I live on the East Coast. The temperature is fairly similar from view to here. It doesn't change a huge amount. On Mars, the range is 2 or 3 times as much, so the air pressure will drop considerably at night. So you have to be a lot more cognizant of that kind of thing. I still think they'll use some kind of a metal type of tire, but it'll be interesting. Still, it has a lot of potential for use on Mars, and for other rugged purposes. I can see this being used by the National Park Service, by fire and rescue services, by police, by Border Patrol, and anything that needs a really tough vehicle that can take some beating and needs to be able to go off-road in some pretty extreme conditions. The Park Service, it might be a little bit strange, you might think, but I think they could make really good use out of it because you can plug it in just about anywhere. And you could have some cabin where the park ranger is staying at, and you could have this vehicle that's plugged in so it has charge all the time, and they could go wherever they needed to go with this and be just fine. And because it's electric, they wouldn't need to import gas or go to a gas station or anything like that. They could just stay in some remote setup for an extended period of time, which would be pretty neat. Similarly, I think all of these other services, police, fire, that could make use out of a heavy-duty vehicle will make excellent use out of it for rescuing people. I think that's going to be a lot of the audience. Now, there are some people who just like extreme vehicles. For a long time, there's been people who like Hummers. I'm not one of those people. I know some people who just always dreamed about having a Hummer, and when they got to have enough money to buy one, they went and bought one. I think those same types of people are probably going to appeal to this kind of vehicle as well. Overall, it's a really interesting vehicle. The price is fantastic. The looks, I'm not a huge fan. I like the stainless steel. It just kind of looks odd. I showed it to my wife, and her first thing was, well, if you get this truck, then you can go with it to Mars, but I'm not going with you. And to be honest, I wasn't going to buy it. I'm not a truck person, neither is my wife. But it is an interesting choice, and it's a very, very different direction for Tesla. But it'll probably appeal to some people. So far, they've had 200,000 pre-orders, which is not as many as the Model 3, but it's still a pretty decent number of people. I think they're going to do okay. I don't think this is going to take over as top truck or anything like that. It's not the pickup truck that people were expecting or wanting from Tesla. But I think it does have some pretty good potential. It'll be really interesting to see what comes out of it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Let me know whatever questions, comments you have. Let me know if you're planning on buying one of these Cybertrucks, and if so, why? I'm really curious to hear from you guys. Let me know if you know of any other applications where this might work well. I really think that the public services is the place for it to be, but maybe there's some other use I'm not thinking of. Till next time, keep on tracking. Take care.